I am here today with my friend Adam from Plugged In from the US, sitting in his garage. Hello, Adam.
How are you doing today, Andy?
I'm fine, mate. I was just fascinated because we were talking off air, and you said you're warm cold, which I
Yes,
just thought was when you explained what you meant. Because I was thinking, where's he going? And then you explained it, and I thought, yeah, I get it completely. Warm cold.
I'm warm cold. We recently moved from Colorado Springs, which is in the Rocky Mountains in Colorado, to Carmel, California, which is on the central coast. We're about 6 hours north of the fires in Los Angeles. So people have been asking, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "We're okay. It's 300 miles away." But you think California, and you think, it's the be all and the end all of, where you want to live. And I've told my wife I've never been more cold in my life, even though it's not cold. It doesn't make any sense. It's usually about 55 or 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Somebody told us that they have two seasons here, early fall and late fall. And that seems about right because every day is about the same. But because we are only about 10 blocks from the ocean where we're at. It's a little resort town. My wife is working as a pastor in a church here, which is the only reason we're even here. Um, but it's wet, and I've come from someplace that's so utterly dry that wetness just creeps in, and I'm like, wow, I need a coat. I'm cold, even though it's 60 degrees, I'm cold.
Hence the hat.
Hence that. But actually, we just had some friends that got back from Scotland and they brought me this. And I never would have probably purchased it for myself, but I've quite taken to it. So hopefully you don't feel like I'm trying to impersonate British people. It's legit. I'm wearing
It's very
it.
distinguished, sir. It's very distinguished. Right. We are here to review a sort of a new feature, really, on Family Focus, and we're going to look at
Yeah.
all sorts of things. Just briefly before we get into that,
Yep.
just give us an overview. What's Plugged In for people who haven't
Yeah.
yet heard of it?
Well, Plugged In is a ministry of Focus on the Family, which is a U.S. organization. Actually, we have offices all over the world, associate offices. We want to help your family thrive spiritually and relationally. And obviously, we're living in a time, Andy, where screens dominate so much of our lives. I don't know that it's ever been easy to be a parent and deal with popular culture, but I'm pretty sure it's never been harder than it is now because it's everywhere, right? Back in the day when I was growing up, parents might be able to have some control over what their kids saw. I think it's harder now. And so, what we do at Plugged In is a couple of different things. We review everything across the gamut in pop culture. We review movies, music, TV, video games, books, YouTube channels, and TV shows. We want to give you a sense of what you can expect. And when I say review, we're not doing a typical aesthetic or completely subjective review. We want to capture everything that you can expect to find there content wise so that you can make a good decision before you're in the middle of a movie or a TV show and you find yourself doing a face palm. You're like, oh, I wish I would have known that this had all this content in it because now I either have to have awkward conversations with my kids or cover their eyes or walk out of something I just spent, $30 for to take my family to, or 40 or 50. We want to help you avoid that. But I think even more significantly than that, our hope as you come to Plugged In over and over is that as you engage with our content, you'll get a sense of how we're trying to deal with entertainment and technology really from a discipleship perspective. We want to help you think in terms of a Christian worldview and really how should we be thinking about this particular set of issues. And sometimes things are obviously beyond the pale, right? It's like, okay, that's self-evidently bad. We're going to avoid that. But other times you'll have something that may get a lot of critical buzz and may have some things to recommend it that still has hard stuff that we have to grapple with. So we want to inform, we want to encourage, and hopefully equip you as a family really to grow in your discipleship as it comes to entertainment, popular culture, and technology.
Especially for films. I mean, as a family over the years, I mean, it's not even a faith thing for me. I like to be able to go through the plugged in review because it tells me what's going on. Is there any nudity? Is there any
Yeah.
bad language? Are there some scenes that are around drugs or whatever? And for
Right.
us, we can go through the plugged in review, look at the film and think, okay, is this a film we want to watch? Okay, it's
Yep.
got these issues. My kids are a bit older now. It's not quite the
Right.
same. But we still go to plugged in first to think, well, what does plugged in say? Not because you're
Hmm.
saying this is a great film or a bad film, but you're saying,
Right.
here's the stuff in it that you need to be aware of, make your own decision, which I really, really like.
Yeah.
And that's where I first met plugged in, which is for us is brilliant.
Well, and interestingly, I think where it becomes challenging, what we do is when we have stuff that has a lot of content to deal with, but there are serious messages there as well. And so just we try to give things credit where credit is due, while at the same time saying, okay, even though there may be this redemptive or positive message, there's still all this stuff you got to deal with, right?
Mm.
And so you don't want to be unpleasantly surprised, especially with those harder subjects, because sometimes if you see something, those images can stick with you, and we know that images have power. So we want to help you with that.
Empowering families everywhere, to be honest, is one of our big hearts and passions anyway. So that's
Mm.
why these are so exciting. Right, let's get into some reviews because I know Plugged
Yeah.
In does absolutely loads of just so much review.
Yeah.
Just give us the reviews that we can get through of some of
Yep.
the areas. I mean, we've mentioned movies, we've mentioned books, we've mentioned music. So start
Yep.
wherever you want to, Adam.
Well, I'm going to start in sort of a strange place. There's a movie out this weekend called Flow. It's a French movie, but it's not in French. And it's not in French because there's no language at all. It is a story about a group of animals that get caught unexpectedly in a flood. And these are not animals that would typically spend any time with each other. Some of them might try to eat some of the others. And they sort of team up in an anthropomorphic way to save each other. So there's a cat, there is a capybara, there is a secretary bird, which is kind of a stork like bird, and there's a lemur, and they all try to help each other rescue these animals that are caught in the flood. And it's kind of an interesting and limited premise, but man, this was kind of a remarkable film. I just found myself thinking, wow, I don't know that I've ever seen anything quite like this before. So that one is one that may or may not be really on anybody's radar too much to speak of. But obviously, we're just coming off the holidays, and it's a huge time for some of Hollywood's biggest offerings to be released. We've got Mufasa, the Lion King, which of course is a prequel to um, the Lion King, which came out. I think the live action. Obviously, it's not live action, but it's photorealistic CGI version came out. I think 6 years ago, and it was retelling the 1994 version. And Mufasa in those stories is the elder lion. And this is sort of his origin story, how he and Scar came into relationship, how they became enemies. And it tells that story. And I'm of like three different minds on this. My first mind is just go watch the 1994 animated version and call it good, right? It's a better movie. My second mind deals with both the remake and this prequel, in that when you take some of that violence and make it photorealistic, it's more intense. And I think it's definitely more intense for young viewers. So keep that in mind. And finally, I think there's nothing particularly wrong with the movie. It's exactly what you think it would be, but it's also exactly what you think it would be. And so the cynic in me says, this is just, it's a money grab, right? Let's take a franchise that made $1 billion the last time around, and let's make sure that we don't leave any money on the table. So, not a terrible movie. I don't think it's as good as the original, and I don't think the remake is as good as the 1994 version. So, I would just go watch the animated one again, Andy.
Okie doke. What else have we got then?
Well, it seems like it is just the time of year when we get these big movies, and so many of them are just, our sequels. So we got Sonic the Hedgehog 3, we have Moana 2, and both of those are a lot like their other their predecessors, if you will. There is another movie in theaters that is a little bit more serious. It's actually a lot more serious. It's called The Room Next Door. It comes out this weekend. This is in the US. Our rating for it is a PG-13 movie. So I'm not sure how
Maybe a
movies get.
15-ish over
Yeah,
here.
probably. It's not a restricted or an M-rated movie, but it certainly is not a movie for kids. This is a movie that stars Julianne Moore and Tilda Swinton as friends who had a very close friendship when they were young, were separated for many years, and Julianne Moore's character Ingrid finds out that her friend Martha, played by Tilda Swinton, has cancer, and so she comes alongside her and really says, "I'm here for you." Is it going to be terminal? They have to find that out. Really, some great stuff about friendship and sacrificial friendship. But then they find out it's terminal and that Martha is going to die from this cancer. And Tilda Swinton's character says, I'm not going to let cancer kill me. I'm going to do the job before it can get to me. And so it turns into a movie about euthanasia. And I think it's a great example of what we try to do at Plugged in terms of evaluating difficult ethical and moral and theological issues, because the movie presents us with the question, if somebody wants to kill themselves because they're terminally ill, A, is that a good thing? And B, should I participate? And Julianne Moore's character Ingrid ultimately helps her friend take her own life. And so in the review, we talk a lot about how, because we're created in God's image, we have dignity, we have sanctity and meaning, even amidst struggle, and that a life is worth living, even if there's pain and if we know the end is going to be difficult. And I think movies like this, Andy, they operate on an emotional level, right? It's like, well, yeah, of course it's the right thing to help my friend end her suffering. Like it causes us to rationalize something that if we step back and think about it, we realize, no, this is not a good thing. Euthanasia is not a merciful thing to do to somebody, even though they might desperately long for that. So I think that's a great example of us trying to delve more deeply into to ethical and theological issues.
Okay. Books, music, games. What else do we have then?
Let's talk a little bit about music. Has Chapel Roan, the singer Chapel Roan, been a big deal over there? Is that a name that you are familiar with?
Not myself, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. I'm rubbish at names.
So, Chapel Roan is a young woman. She's from Missouri and grew up in a very conservative Christian household. And then went to Los Angeles, and in the process sort of realized she was gay and has embraced uh, her LGBT identity. And she's got a number of songs. We've got a review of the track, because we review both individual single tracks and albums up, called Good Luck Babe. She has another huge hit called Hot to Go, which you've probably heard even if you don't even know that you have heard it. And I would put her really almost in the category of somebody like Lady Gaga or Madonna, and that she's intentionally provocative. I think what is very much the case now is that, once upon a time, LGBT themed or LGBT performers felt like they had to hide that, right? We can talk about Elton John, or there's a long list of them, Freddie Mercury, that kept that closeted. Now there's a celebration of that. And certainly we get that with Chapel Roan. And so a lot of her music deals with that. And Good Luck Babe is a song about her falling in love with a woman who falls in love with her back. But this other woman isn't comfortable sort of embracing her lesbian identity. And so she gets married to a guy. And Chapel Roan basically says, you're going to be miserable. You could have had me instead, but you didn't have enough courage to be true to yourself. And again, I think this is where we're at culturally. And we want to help people think through what do I do with that? How do I talk to my kids about this sort of thing? Because it's out there in the ether, and there is an embrace of an understanding of sexuality in our mainstream secular culture, both in the US and in Great Britain, that rejects a biblical understanding of sexuality and what God really designed. So she is an artist I think we're going to see a lot more of in the future. So you can check out that track review, and I'm actually going to be reviewing her most recent album fully here in a couple of weeks.
Okay, music. Have we got anything else? Games, books? What have we got?
Yeah, I'm just scrolling through. I'm not even going to try to pretend that I'm totally on top of it.
You don't have a
Um,
weekly encyclopedic knowledge.
well, I try to have a pretty good one, but there's a new video game out, and it is for a whole bunch of platforms. It's for PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and it is called Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. And I don't think I'm going to be in the minority when I say the last Indiana Jones movie was disappointing, to say the least. Actually, the last two, they should have just left it with the last one in like 1989. But this is an Indiana Jones adventure taken from the 1930s. And of course, he is looking for an artifact and running into Nazis. And so it feels like a movie themed very much like the first one, and it's a terrific just adventure kind of game. And so you can find our full review of that. There are going to be some language issues that you'll want to watch out for, so it's not a game I would say everybody should necessarily go out and get for their young kids, but I think probably for teens on up there's not going to be anything too horrible here. We've got a little bit of mystical spiritualism to deal with as well, but I think this game is actually much better than the last couple movies that came out.
Fine. Okay. Films, music, and games. There's a plethora of stuff. Um,
Yes.
if people want to find out these reviews and dig in more, and the whole point, well, this is what I really liked about Plugged In. You're not saying to parents you should do or do not this. What you're saying is
Right.
have the evidence and information before you to make an
Yep.
informed decision for you, for your family, which is what I really, really like and
Yeah.
respect a great deal. Where can people get all of these reviews and more?
You can find them at pluggedin.com, just one word, pluggedin.com. We're a ministry of focus on the family. And if you've enjoyed our discussion, we also have a weekly podcast, The Plugged In Show, and that's at thepluggedinshow.com. And we just talk, because we feel like it's so important for you as a family to know how to talk through these issues with your kids. And hopefully, as we've done that today, as we do that on our own podcast, you can get a sense of what that looks like.
Fab. Adam, thank you. It's been a pleasure setting this up with you for a while and just being able to
Yeah.
have a review of different topics. I mean, we've done films, music, and games today. I know there's other things like books,
Yep.
board games. I think I heard one time.
Yeah.
There's so much in there which we'll go to each week, and
Yes.
it's all about informing parents and saying, look, not even just parents, but anybody, like, this is what's going on. Know what's
Yep.
going on. I remember a guy, he bought a CD. I forget the name of the singer. Oh, it'll be all right. It'll be okay. And I remember saying to him, I would be cautious about that. Anyway,
Yeah.
let's just say he works with people who swear a lot. He took the CD back because he
Yeah.
said, I couldn't cope.
Oh boy.
I know it has an explicit warning, but no, it was too much. But this is the thing. If we're informing people, that might be something
Yep.
you're okay with. But if you're not, isn't it good to know beforehand?
Exactly. And that's what we want to help you with and give you all the information you need to make the best choice for you and for your family.
Adam from pluggedin.com. Thank you, sir.
You bet. Thank you, Andy. And look forward to touching base with you regularly on all things entertainment related.